Aloha, and we are back. Sorry about my camera situation, but we'll get that worked out over time. Anyways, this is Power to the People podcast, and he's going to break down Sam Harris telling the hard truth about the Democratic Party. So this is Stephan. He's a Democratic sycophant. He has Trump derangement syndrome, as do most people. And so let's get into it.
All right, so we're here to do some more deep dive analysis on the Democratic Party, why they lost, the if, ands, and the buts, and at least somewhat of a future for the Democratic Party, and more so of why Republicans are trash and how that trash got them the presidency.
And the Democrats are trash. I don't understand how people act like there's a big difference in the Democrats and the Republicans, but I'm going to let them speak a little bit more until I start cutting in.
That's, to me, is still something that needs to be talked about. And as you see, we're going to be listening to Sam Harris and the Bulwark, the Bulwark podcast. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. And it's a really enlightening to hear a conversation that's not like jank where he's just screaming some nonsense, like hearing people who actually spent a few minutes thinking about the situation. And once again, if you are serious about politics and that political conversation.
So I watch this podcast quite often, and this guy likes to call people stupid and dumb and unserious all the time. And I think normally when people say that, they're normally projecting, right? So watch this podcast. If you watch mine, go ahead and watch his, and you'll see how unserious this guy is, how just whatever the Democrats do or say is totally what it has to be. And there is no real difference in Democrats and Republicans. They just play off each other. But let it go.
You need to be more engaged in politics and the ins and outs and the nitty gritty and the boring stuff more than just 4 years at a time. Like, you actually have to have these conversations. So when we are in, primaries or the election, you can actually have something to say. So that's why I love these type of conversations. So we got a few things to kind of cover. So we're just going to.
So I want to get to that, the reckoning part of it, but just one more on this point, because you're I guess pointing out that your critique of these left institutions and the far left activists is in line with the critique that undergirds Elon's pivot to the lunacy that he's pushing now. But you didn't go full whole hog, right?
And it is not the far left. Joe Rogan and Elon Musk, whatever, were on the left until the liberals, the Kamalas, and the Joe Bidens pushed them out, calling them whatever they were calling them back in the day, now calling them fascists and whatnot. But it's ridiculous to say the far left. Bernie Sanders was kind of the far left, and everyone loved him. He sold out crowds. That is the way the Democratic Party should have gone. They went to the right. They went towards the Republican Party. So why vote for Republican light when you could just vote for Republican? We need to go green. We have 4 years. Let's vote a lot of green in 2 years, and then let's try to get more green in 4 years. This is insane to keep doing the same thing over and over and over, thinking it's going to be different. It's not going to be different.
Like, it's one thing to be like, I'm annoyed by the people that are, taping themselves to priceless works of art, or that are making people who are obviously one gender put their pronouns in their bio, or who are like just unnecessarily, having racially segregated meetings at schools and so there's a lot of lunacy on the far left, but like, it isn't. I understand why that makes people upset with the Democrats, but that isn't really what like Joe Biden was doing in the administration, right? And yet the lunatics are literally running the asylum on the right. So while I can understand the cultural critique of the left, like you've been.
So the lunatics on the right are running the asylum. Let's see who's running the asylum for the Democrats here.
And so the younger generation now tells me how tough things are. Give me a break. No, I have no empathy for it. Give me a break. Because here's the deal, guys. We decided we were going to change the world, and we did. We did. My message is, it doesn't matter whether or not they were deprived as a youth. It doesn't matter or not whether or not they had no background that enabled them to become socialized into the fabric of society. It doesn't matter whether or not they're the victims of society. The end result is they're about to knock my mother on the head with a lead pipe, shoot my sister, beat up my wife, take on my sons.
So this is how Joe Biden thinks of us. This one is probably, this was in the 90s, so 20, 30 years old. The other one was when he was running for president, talking about he has no empathy. So, and then let's see.
Cartels, they are not just gangs of kids anymore. They are often the kinds of kids that are called super predators. No conscience, no empathy. We can talk about why they ended up that way, but first we have to bring them to heel, and the president has asked the FBI to launch.
So see, these are the Democrats. This is better than the Republicans? Are you serious? Like, how is it that big of a difference? Donald Trump says stuff, but then the Democrats actually have power. They say it and they do it. Like, I don't understand. Like, these guys or this guy is not serious.
Managed, I think, to ride this balance between I have this cultural critique of the far left without meaning I need to throw in with the Newsmax crowd. Those guys all failed at that balance. Yeah. Like, how do you assess that?
And to me, that was an amazing question. Like, how do people take, random folks on TikTok, and some of it is crazy on purpose because they're trying to get views. So I get that. But they'll take the most craziest things on TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, and paint that as the Democratic Party as a whole. The Democratic Party has a lot of flaws, trust me. But to formulate a crazy person on TikTok as that's Harris's or Joe Biden's position is crazy. But then when you hear literally Donald Trump saying he's going to use the military for the enemy within, then he describes who's the enemy within, which.
And then back to Hillary Clinton. Like, these people are so unserious. They don't even know. We just did this, Hillary. What did she just say? What did she say?
Turning into something worse. But we also have to have an organized effort against gangs. Just as in a previous generation we had an organized effort against the mob. We need to take these people on. They are often connected to big drug cartels. They are not just gangs of kids anymore. They are often the kinds of kids that are called super predators. No conscience, no empathy. We can talk about why they ended up that way, but first we have to bring them to heel, and the president has asked the FBI to launch a very concerted effort against gangs everywhere. In addition to that.
So, she just said the same thing Donald Trump said. He said Donald Trump is going to use the military, they're going to use the police and the FBI. I mean, what is the difference?
Left people, Democrats, no one says nothing. Everyone's like, "Oh no, he just
Democrats are not left.
He don't really mean that, right? Like, he just." So once again, the standards is not on a level playing field. But no,
he's talking about the standards not being on a level playing field. So I just showed you what they said a couple times, and then they did it. Joe Biden or Bill Clinton passed Joe Biden's crime bill. They talked about it and they did it. What standards are you talking about? Donald Trump talks madness, but he does some of it, but he doesn't do most of it. Like, there are checks and balances for a reason, but when the Democrats get in, their social policies are terrible.
No one cares. So let's hear Mr. Harris.
Well, it does come back to the intellectual integrity I described at the outset, and the failures of it. I mean, it's for whatever reason, I'm enough of a creature of the institutions to have internalized certain standards of scrupulousness, journalistically, academically, scientifically. I mean, I have a PhD in neuroscience and a background in philosophy before that, and if nothing else, that has drummed into me certain standards of intellectual embarrassment that I don't want to touch. Right? I mean, it's just, and you have to be able to keep.
So Sam Harris is the liberal Jordan Peterson to me. They just use all the big words they've ever learned and just keep saying them and saying them to make the longest sentences and longest paragraphs you could possibly make without really saying anything. It's like, it's such a funny skill. And then to watch people talk about how smart they are when, like, if you know what the words mean, right? You know all these big words, and it's just like, they're just stringing along like these weird sentences, and a lot of them don't even mean anything. It's so funny.
More than one grotesque object in view at a time, right? So to be convinced that the left has lost its way, as many of us are, is need not make you blind to the fact that Trump and Trumpism poses a real threat to our democracy. Right? I mean, Trump is a demagogue. He's the most
and
prolific
even if you don't
liar
actually
we've ever
think
seen.
that, even if actually you don't believe that, and you think Trump leaves in 2028, like, so, again, looking, I just think that,
and let me express this before I forget. But one thing that Cornel West has said that has been stuck in my mind forever is making sure that you base your conversation or just your standards, your morals, everything into an intellectual integrity and a moral honesty. Yes,
Intellectual integrity and moral honesty are two things the Democratic Party do not have. I don't understand how anybody could try to say that and then be a Democrat. Cornel West, I think he did say to vote for the Democrats this time because everybody has Trump derangement syndrome, but has been an independent and voting for non-Democrats his entire life up until everyone getting TDS.
I'm going to get that tattoo one day. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just right there. And I believe, just thinking about that, if you try to base all your conversations, it could be anything. It doesn't have to just be politics, into that. And a intellectual integrity and a moral honesty, you're always, 9 times out of 10, going to find yourself on the right side of that conversation. You know what I'm saying? Very few people can point at you and say, hey, you're a hateful person. You know, you might have a few little weirdos here and there, but like, hey, you hate all gay people. You hate all, like, no. If you operate in integrity, in a moral honesty, you should 9 times out of 10 be in a conversation to where you don't have to pretend. You don't have to be labeled as a crazy person. You're just being honest, and it's easy for you to operate in that. Because when you're...
Okay, well, Stephen's rambling a lot here, so I'm going to end this video here kind of, but this is a guy I watch a bit, so I'm going to share the videos and the people that I watch, and so that you guys can go check them out yourself. But I'm also going to, go find other things like I've been doing. So if you like the video, like, share, subscribe, and then I'll see you shortly.